So welcome to a new session of BD Rugby. The Six Nations is over for another year, and we're looking ahead towards England's summer tour of Australia in July. I thought it'd be good to have a look at a recap of the team that played France and how that team, or 23, may evolve for that first game against Australia in July for that tour, that really important tour heading towards the World Cup next year. So looking at the team and starting from fullback, we had the experiment of George Fairbank at fullback. We know that was probably a selection made for the game against France. They are renowned for their kicking game at the moment. They kick supposedly more than any international team. And I think the idea was with George that he would be, as a fullback, be able to return that ball. He has a good kicking game, or a good long kicking game. As the game turned out, it probably didn't work out that way. I think also there was the advantage of moving Freddie Stuart to the wing so they could target that in an attacking fashion. And that did pay off, to be honest. He won a lot of ball in the air, which gained momentum for the team. He also, which I think is an advantage, and something that England probably should exploit going forwards, is that he's actually very effective, deadly, close to the line. So if we can give him the ball, being a big man, he seems to have a good sort of eye for a try, and can score from those positions. To be honest, if we're looking forward, I think Freddie Stuart's got to play 15. I do think he's probably got that X factor and could be a standout player come year's time. I mean, he's one of the best players that I've seen in the air, I think, given his size, but he's actually got very good skill and technique, the way he catches the ball. I think he negates a lot of teams that do have a strong kicking game. I think we've seen that against Wales and even to a degree against South Africa, whereby it becomes less of a weapon because he's so assured at the back. And that can only be a positive thing for a team, that you know that you're not going to be fumbling the ball or having to deal with the sort of leftovers from a spill. So I can only see him playing for 15, probably for at least the next year, but not even for years to come. So I think it'd be good to be building with him at the back. Unfortunately, I think that looks like George Fairbank's going to be would drop out of my squad. He, although he's been compared to previously to New Zealand-based players, I think personally we have better players that we could play. I would really like to see us choose an actual winger on the wing. I know that a lot of other people are calling for this as well. I was interested to hear that Brian O'Driscoll had said on a podcast a few weeks ago that he feels that England should be using someone that actually scares teams. And I have to completely agree. You want a player who is equally going to create some kind of chaos, or is going to create some sort of unnervingness in the opposition, so it actually pulls defenders. In a similar way to all the discussion around Manu Tuilagi is around the fact that from a physical perspective, even if he's not on the ball, he draws people as a decoy due to his physicality. And I think we could do the same with a winger with rapid pace. And I'm thinking people like Adam Radwan. He may well not be the finished article, but I kind of think back to the 2003 team and before, with players like Jason Robinson, who when he first came into Union, there was lots of elements of his game that he would have to work on. I'm sure I remember him having to work with kicking coaches about kicking and etc. But it was the fact that what he could do in attack and those sort of X factor bits that he brought and skills that he brought. And I think Adam Radwan has that. I mean, you only have to look at these clips to show that the guy has just rapid speed, and he's doing this against international based players. Yes, it's not in an international scenario, but I think it's really important. And I think there's a lot of examples during the Six Nations where actually England did get the ball out wide and they got it to the wingers. And because our wingers, although very skilled, don't lack that raw pace and maybe winger instinct, having probably neither Jack Noel or Malins being a winger from a young age group. I think Malins was playing 10 for the under-20s. Noel was a fullback. So neither are really potentially instinctively winger, and therefore they don't try and take the man on or do things that we classically see from other wingers. So I'd love to see someone Adam Radwan, or alternative, someone who is another Hassel Collins, someone who, you know, is playing wingers, potentially played a winger all their life and has those winger instincts. On the other wing, I'm a fan of Jack Nolan. I think actually, unfortunately for him, I think breaking his hand in the French game, but you can see the elements that he brings. He's busy around the ball. He gets over the ball. He's good in defence, good in the air. And I think you can have that balance. You can have someone who looks for the ball. I'm thinking like some of the latest stuff around Chris Ashton, how he kind of searches around the ball, and that is really effective. But then having that person who's rapid pace. I think if we move towards the centres, I think classically I listened to something from Clive Woodward not that long ago, who's sort of alluded to the fact it's always been a bit of an issue. I know we historically think of Tyndall and Greenwood as being, you know, they were a brilliant partnership, but actually during that period there was quite a lot of tinkering. People have never quite known what the sort of perfect ingredients are for those positions. And I think we probably need to move. I mean, I'm not the only one who's saying this, but we probably need to move away from Manu or relying too much on him. I mean, equally, I'm a fan of his. I think he brings another level to the game. When he was going to be selected for that Wales game, there was an excitement. I thought, this is interesting, but it's because I knew that it would give England another dimension. And personally, I think that we need to, if we're going to play a certain way with Manu, I think we should be trying to play that same way with someone else. And I think we should be developing that, whether that's a Mark Atkinson or a Paolo Adogwu, or I think I'd like to see these people given a chance, but trying to play a certain way so you can kind of fit people in and out. Obviously, that brings in the whole Farrell situation. I mean, that is the other option, is you go Smith Farrell and you play Farrell, and then you either play Slade or Marchant. And actually, to be honest, personally, I would be looking to go Marchant in that position. I've always been a fan of Marchant's. I think the guy has a good skill set. I think you have to look at his bio that he's a black belt in karate, some British gymnastic champion, and some other kind of events, and he shows that in the way he plays. He's got a very broad physical skill set, very good in the air, the way he plays, very agile, quite strong, showing that dominance. And I think particularly in those last two games, Ireland and France, you started to see that he was doing a lot of work at the breakdown, and that's definitely been a factor from other teams. So the French and the Irish, you know, their centres work very hard at the breakdown, and actually that's quite a weapon that if they can win that. And I think potentially there's an option for England to do the same. Not that I'm against Slade, but I'm just sure that I think England would be in a stronger position to have, you know, two people pushing for each position, and they would be my two at 13. Obviously, that leaves a gap at 12. However, you could have Farrell and someone else, and that would give you that balance. I think in terms of 10, I don't think you can look much further on Smith. I know there's people who campaign and still say that Ford is, you know, an underrated player, and I don't dispute that. I just think that Smith has something that we probably just need to keep pushing. The guy is able to create space. I think as he gets more comfortable at international level, I think he'll bring more people into the game. I think he builds understanding at 9 and possibly with other backs. Again, I think we'll see that even further flourish. I think looking at the 9s, if we assume that Ben Youngs won't travel to Australia, given that he's not travelled in the last few tours, then I think we're looking at probably 3 likely candidates. So Harry Randall, who was effectively in pole position during the Six Nations. Got Rafi Quirk, who was capped in the autumn and showed a lot of promise there, I think. And then Alex Mitchell, who equally was capped in the autumn. And I would say all 3 of those are probably similar sort of players. They bring a lot more speed to the breakdown. a lot more likely to take tap and goes. All three of them quite quick in their own, in loose field. The other person I'd throw out there as a name is Jack Van Portfey, who's playing at Leicester. I mean, he's obviously been mentored by both Ben Youngs and Richard Wigglesworth. So you can't really get better than that. And can't forget, this is a guy who captained the England under-20s last year to a Grand Slam and was voted player of the tournament. Yeah, so I wonder if he offers that bit of blend of that control and that speed at the breakdown. So that wraps up the backs. I'll be reviewing the forwards in part 2, so please subscribe to the videos and look out for the next video.